I'm here in my garage, just bought this brand new Dodge Challenger Scat Pack here for you guys. What is going on, everybody? I hope you're having a wonderful day today. In today's video, I wanted to talk about some big, huge news that came out in the car community this past week. Actually, it was about a little bit over a week ago. It was on the 18th of July, I believe. Chevy made a big announcement to the world, and I'm sure all of you know exactly what I'm talking about. But for those of you that don't, Chevy released their next generation Corvette. This is the C8 Corvette. So the current generation, the one that you see driving around, the one that you can buy at the dealerships today, is the C7. Well, this is the C8 Corvette. And now this is a big announcement, not only because it's the next generation of, America's sports car. I mean, it is probably the most well-known, most memorable car in American history, aside from like a Mustang or something like that. But in terms of sports cars, the Corvette is probably the biggest in American history. So not only is it big news just because, hey, it's the next generation of America's sports car, it's huge news because this is the first generation ever to have a mid-engine setup. Now, I'm sure all of you know what that means, but for those of you that don't, a mid-engine setup is different from a conventional automobile, like my Dodge, for example, because in conventional cars, conventional vehicles, they have the engine in front of the driver and passenger, right? It's under the hood, and the hood is in front of the vehicle. That's kind of normal. That's how people refer to a hood. They refer to the front of the vehicle. Now, a mid-engine setup is different, because the engine is actually located behind the passenger compartment. So it's behind the driver, the passenger, the whole interior cabin is actually in front of the engine. So the engine sits pretty much right on the rear axles or slightly in front of the rear axles. Now this is huge news because they've been talking about a mid-engine Corvette for like decades now, and they made prototypes and they've been talking about it. And really, they've been mentioning it more recently because this car has been under development for the past several years. I'm sure it has taken like 5 to 10 years just to create this vehicle and make it what it is today. But this is huge news because a mid-engine Corvette takes the Corvette name from just a regular sports car to supercar status. The reason I say that is because Lamborghinis, McLarens, Ferraris, those are all manufacturers that have cars with mid-engine setups, aside from a few like the Ferrari California and stuff like that. But most of those high-end supercars, most of the high-end Lambos and Ferraris, those are mid-engine setups. So the engine is set up behind the passenger and the driver. And there's a lot of advantages to that. I mean, you can look up videos that talk about it, but some of the biggest ones that come to mind is really handling. Handling of a mid-engine sports car is much better than handling of a front-engine sports car. And the reason why is physics. To be honest, that's kind of how it works. If you really think about it and kind of simplify and dumb it down, imagine yourself on an office chair and somebody is spinning you around. If your body is really tight and you're in like the fetal position, really clenched up closer to the middle of the chair, you're going to spin a lot quicker than if you have your arms and legs out, essentially stopping you, because that's just the way that the weight distribution works, the way inertia works. And that's why in a mid-engine setup, you're going to handle a lot better than if the engine is in the front or all the way in the back, because it's closer to the center. So your center of gravity is closer to the middle of the vehicle. And so naturally, you're going to be able to turn a lot better and handle a little better. Now, I'm no engineer, but that's kind of a simple explanation on why mid-engine sports cars will handle a lot better than front-engine sports cars. That's also another reason why having a lower engine is also better, because your center of gravity is lower as compared to like SUVs, that their center of gravity is a lot higher. That's why they're easier to tip and they don't handle as well. So that's, I think, a kind of a dumbed down explanation on one of the reasons why mid-engine sports cars are better. The other reason is typically mid-engine sports cars are quicker just because a lot of that weight is located on the rear axles, and typically these vehicles are rear-wheel drive. So if you have more weight closer to where the power is being delivered, you're going to have more traction, you're going to have quicker acceleration. That's why, honestly, a mid-engine Challenger would have probably crazy amounts of acceleration, because the biggest problem that's plaguing the Dodge Challenger is having not enough weight on the rear axles, and it being a rear-wheel drive car makes it sometimes difficult to get enough traction to be able to accelerate as quick as you want. But now I'm just talking crazy talk. Now, to me, the design of the C8 Corvette is revolutionary more than it is just like evolutionary. And I say that because the C8 looks nothing like the C7. I mean, maybe a few things here and there. And it's funny because I read an article where the engineers were saying they only used one part from the C7 Corvette on the C8. Now, they didn't mention what that part was, or maybe I just didn't read that part because I'm lazy, but there's only one real part that was transferred over, and so the whole car is totally different. That's why, in my opinion, it's a revolutionary automobile, totally different from its predecessors, but at the same time, it still carries some of that heritage and some of the design cues that you really liked from the previous generation. So I don't think it strains away from the past, but I think it's a really good revolution of the past. It's really good engineering, and it really is a progression of all the way from the 50, 60 years ago when the original Corvette came out. It really does kind of pay homage to those vehicles and at the same time create its own path. Now it sounds like I'm directing a Hollywood movie. But anyways, I really do like the look of this car, and I think it still screams Corvette, but it's got its own personality to it. Now, I'm about to show a photo, and I'm sure everybody's already seen one, but for those that don't, the C8 Corvette looks like this. Now, in my opinion, I think it looks like a Ferrari and Lamborghini merged together, had a baby, and that's what the C8 Corvette looks like. You have your own opinions. You can say whatever you want, but honestly, that's just what I think. I think it's a Ferrari mixed with a Lamborghini, and I think it looks stunning. I really like what Corvette and what Chevy did with the design language of this vehicle. Now let's talk about some of the specs of this car. So the only one they've really released right now is the base engine. So it's going to be coming with V8, naturally aspirated, no turbochargers, no superchargers, nothing like that. It's a 6.2 liter naturally aspirated V8. So it's the same one that's on the outgoing model right now, but they have tweaked and refined it, and they're actually able to get more horsepower out of it. Now it's codenamed the LT2, but they've updated the internals, so it can now produce 495 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque with this performance exhaust that you can get as a package. So that's really the only numbers they've announced on this vehicle in terms of horsepower and output, which is still a very healthy amount for this vehicle. Just as a comparison, my car is a 6.4 liter, and I'm getting 485 horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque. So it's very similar numbers, and the displacement's just slightly smaller at 6.2 liters, but still a very healthy engine for the size and the weight of the vehicle. Speaking of which, from what I understand, this vehicle is actually going to weigh a little bit heavier than the C7 Corvette. I think they have their own variety of reasons, one of them being the fact that it is a mid-engine setup. But if you're curious about that, you can look up more details. But I think it should still come in around 3,500 pounds, which is still way lighter than the Dodge Challenger. Now for the big news that floored me and really made me pay attention to this vehicle, and that is the 0 to 60 of the C8 Corvette. You're going to want to take a seat because it's kind of crazy. So the 0 to 60 of the C8 Corvette is, wait for it, less than 3 seconds. Yes, you heard that correctly. The 0 to 60 is less than 3 seconds. And when I heard this, I crapped my pants because I really did not expect a base level car to make 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds, right? And it's really going to sound even more surprising when I tell you that the price of the vehicle, the starting price of the base level Corvette, is less than $60,000. What? Yes, you heard that correctly. You can still get a base level Corvette for less than $60,000. Now, I'm sure they're going to manipulate that somehow because that probably doesn't include the destination charges. And I'm sure if you include that, it'll probably bump it over $60,000. That is still a very affordable price for a mid-engine sports car. I mean, hey, I can't think of very many other cars that have that much output, that much power, and have a same mid-engine setup and look that good for less than $60,000. I can't think of any. Now, I do want to mention, I think there's some misconception on the internet right now that you can get 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds for the base level Corvette, and that's simply not true. To get that 0 to 60 time, you're actually going to need to get the Z51 package, and that's going to take it over 60,000. I'm definitely certain about that. And I'm going to touch base on what the Z51 package is in a moment, but if you really still think about it, for less than 60,000, you can get a car that goes 0 to 60 in less than 4 seconds for sure, because the current generation Corvette is 3.7 seconds, and you're getting a beautiful body, a mid-engine sports car setup, and almost 500 horsepower. Now, you're going to hear it from me first, but I think that the 0 to 60, based on what I've gathered from some of the videos I've watched and some of the press releases they've made, I think it's going to be closer to 3.4, 3.5 seconds 0 to 60 for the base level Corvette without any packages, without nothing, just with the base LT2 engine. I'm going to guess the 0 to 60 is going to be around 3.4, 3.5 seconds. Like I said, that's already an improvement from the 3.7 seconds that you're currently getting from the outgoing C7 Corvette. And to think about 3.4, 3.5 seconds in a car under $60,000, that's really mind-blowing. My car right now, brand new, was around $52,000. Mine does 0 to 60 in around 4.3 to 4.5 seconds, depending on what your traction is. And this car is only a little bit more expensive, $8 grand-ish tops, and you're getting 3.4, 3.5, 0 to 60. Honestly, I think Chevy has hit a home run with this vehicle just based on the price and the specs alone. Now, like I mentioned, you'll have to get the Z51 package if you want 0 to 60 less than 3 seconds, which in my opinion, I think it's worth it, because the only cars I can think of that do 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds are like supercars like McLaren, Lambo, Ferrari, all these ones, Bugatti. But speaking of one that's more affordable relatively, the Nissan GT-R comes to mind. That was the car that I first heard of 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds for under like $200,000. I mean, you could have picked up a GT-R for around $110,000 and probably get 0 to 60 around 2.9, 2.8. And to me, $110,000 for that acceleration was a steal. Now, considering that the Z51 package is probably not going to be $40,000, I think that this is the quickest 0 to 60 car for the price that you're paying. I think hands down, it's the quickest. The only ones that do quicker than that are like 3 or 4 times the price range or double the price range if you're looking at a GTR. But there's nothing that really comes close unless somebody has modified their car or put a supercharger or pro charger or turbocharger, whatever kind of charge you want, nitrous charging. There's no other car out there that can get 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds for that same price. So the Z51 package adds a variety of different features, and they haven't released the pricing for it yet. But again, you're going to hear it from me first. I think it's going to come in between maybe $5,000 to $8,000. That's a pretty big swing, but the reason I say 5 to 8 is because right now, if you get a base level Corvette and then you get the base level with the Z51, it's about $5,000 difference. So you're gonna have to fork out an extra $5,000 to get the Z51 package. Now, I'm assuming they're probably gonna bump up the price. I doubt it's gonna be cheaper than $5,000. So you can already expect if the car starts right under $60,000, you're probably paying closer to $65,000 or right under $65,000 just to get the Z51 package. But I'm assuming they're also gonna bump up the price a little bit just because their entry price point is already so low. They're going to have to make their margin somewhere else. So I'm assuming the Z51 package is going to be at least $5,000, but probably closer to $6,000, $7,000, or $8,000. So what does the Z51 package include? Well, you can look it up on their website, but it adds a host of different features. One is it changes the exterior look a little bit. It adds a front spoiler, a bigger rear spoiler. It adds the performance exhaust. It enhances the suspension to like a sports suspension. It changes like some of the seats, and it includes bigger brakes. So there's a lot of different features that you get with it. And honestly, if it's within $5,000 to $8,000, I think it'd be worth it because you're getting a lot of features for it. It's not one of those things where they're charging you an arm and a leg and you're only getting like an exterior carbon fiber treatment or something like that. I think the Z51 package is actually substantial, especially because it does impact performance. It's not just an appearance package, it's an actual mechanical package. So that's why I would say if you have the money and if you're willing to do it, then go for it. But hell, even if you're not, 0 to 60, less than 4 seconds for less than 60 grand, just go for it. I mean, that's unbeatable already. So if you're willing to put down a little bit more money, I definitely opt for the Z51. But if not, I think you're still quick enough to beat 90% of the vehicles out there. Now, the next point I want to make, and this has been somewhat of a disappointment to a lot of people, and that is that the Corvette will no longer be available with a manual transmission. And it's unfortunate because most of the generations of the Corvette have had manual transmissions available. I think only the first generation was the only one that came initially with an automatic, and then they started making manuals and stuff. But for the most part, when you associate a Corvette, you know it's going to have a manual as an option. But as of the C8 Corvette, that's no longer true. You're not going to be able to get a manual transmission. Now, to do a pro-con to kind of back up their decision, what they're going to be doing is a dual clutch Tremec 8-speed automatic. And if you're familiar with dual clutches or you know anything about them, those are phenomenal transmissions. This isn't a regular automatic transmission that's slow to shift or has issues with performance. It really is designed. Dual clutches are designed for sports cars and track racing. And I mean, the quickest shifts, the most amount of power. Dual clutch transmissions are what supercars use. I mean, you're talking about Ferraris, you're talking about Lambos, Bugattis, we're talking about all these vehicles. They all use dual clutch transmissions. None of them offer a manual transmission anymore. So for Corvette And for Chevy to put that into their vehicle, it would have been almost detracting away from the performance capabilities that this vehicle was made for. I mean, that's the whole reason why they did a mid-engine setup. They could have gone with the front engine again and done, just a body treatment change and everything, kept the manual, but they wouldn't be able to compete to the level that they're trying to compete against. I mean, this car really is going for those supercars. And so if they really want to compete against those supercars, they got to play with big boy transmissions and those, or big girl transmissions. I'm not choosing a side, but either case, you got to play with the big leagues, and the big league is a dual clutch transmission. That's kind of just part of the game. I mean, it'd be maybe nice if they offered a manual transmission for some of us car enthusiasts, maybe don't really care about racing it or competing with McLarens. But at the same time, that's an extra cost to them, and that'd probably bump up the starting price of the base Corvette, just because the engineering and the time it takes to develop a manual transmission for that vehicle would have cost them more than just to create one platform for all the vehicles. And like I mentioned, this is not a bad decision to use an automatic transmission because it's a dual clutch automatic. I mean, this is a whole step ahead of regular automatics and manual transmission. This is the next generation. And honestly, they did not disappoint. They didn't stick their 10-speed that they co-produced with, Ford. They didn't stick that into this vehicle. They kept with Tremec to have an 8-speed dual clutch. I think that's a very good choice because honestly, if they went for the 10-speed, there'd be much more disappointment than going for a dual clutch like they did. So I really give kudos to GM because they made the right decision in this case, even though it does mean upsetting some, car enthusiasts. I think we'll all get over it. Another cool feature I forgot to mention is that all the coupes will be coming with a Targa roof that's removable. So just like the outgoing C7 Corvette, essentially when you're buying a C8 Corvette, the base engine, the base level Corvette, you're going to be kind of getting a convertible at the same time because the roof will come off. Now, if you go on their online configurator, you can kind of play around with it and see what options you can get, but you can either get like a carbon fiber one, you can get like a sunroof one where the whole thing is glass, or you can just get a regular hardtop. But regardless, that roof will pop off and actually fit into the trunk of the car. Yes, the new Corvette still has a trunk, even though there's an engine behind you. There's an extra like foot or two behind the engine that's a little compartment where they've managed to fit in a trunk where you can fit some golf clubs, and they're actually designing it so that you can take off the roof and fit it right into that compartment. And so if you're, out on a nice day and all of a sudden starts raining, you can pop the roof back on and not worry about leaving it at home or anything like that. And then there's also a frunk in the front too. So you have a trunk in the front that can fit like, little handbags and like carry-on luggage and stuff like that. So in terms of a usability standpoint, it's almost as good as the C7. I think the storage has gone down just a little bit because you no longer have this giant a lift gate that has a whole trunk space behind you. You got an engine back there, but they've been able to kind of salvage some of that with doing that little trunk in the back behind the engine and keeping the frunk as well. So you're not going to lose a ton of space. It's no longer not a practical car, which the Corvette was always been, somewhat practical. They've still kept that, and I think that's really a throwback to the old days where this is the everyday driver's sports car. I think that's what they've kept it at in terms of storage, in terms of price, in terms of all the features you get, like the removable Targa roof. They really have stayed true to their roots when they've created and engineered this vehicle. And again, I give my kudos to General Motors. They did this right. So if you haven't heard, the production is going to start at the end of this year, so late 2019. So you could probably expect, depending on how big your city is and how big your dealership is, you're probably going to expect to see them as early as, I'm thinking, January, and probably most of us will see them sometime in March and April flowing into the dealerships. And that brings me to my last point, which is now is the time to buy a C7 Corvette. I mean, if you've always debated it and you're not too much into the C8 Corvette, or maybe it's still a little bit out of your price range, I'm certain that when the C8 Corvette hits the dealership floor, or even maybe a few months beforehand, they're going to start dropping the price on the C7 like crazy. So I wouldn't be surprised if you can get into a base level C7 for under $50,000. I think you might even be able to find that now, right now as it is. Fast forward, 3 or 4 or 5, 6 months, I'm pretty certain you could probably get a brand new C7 for under 50 grand. I'm not super familiar with their pricing because I've never really researched the Corvette pricing before, but I'm certain about the fact that they're going to be discounting them like crazy because once the C8 Corvette comes out, they're going to want to get those C7s off the lot. So if you've been holding out and you don't really care for the C8 or you don't want to go for one because it's too expensive, go get a C7 because it's still a phenomenal vehicle, and it's still going to be an amazing price and value for the car. I mean, 0 to 60 is 3.7 seconds. That's nothing to laugh about. Now, the last part of this video, I kind of wanted to talk about what car I would build if I was to buy one. And honestly, the figures that they've pointed out in terms of power and price and all the features that it comes with, like the removable roof and just the look and design of the vehicle, if it's truly under 60,000, which, I mean, they said it is, but I'm wondering if the Z51 really doesn't push it up that much further, I could definitely see that car being my next vehicle. I mean, I've always been a Corvette fan, but never enough to pull the trigger. And then this car came out and I'm ready to pull all the triggers. Like, I really do enjoy this car, the C8 Corvette, that is. And I think it will be a home run if everything that they've reported is true, which I don't see why they would lie about that. But I went onto the configurator online and I decided to build my own Corvette, and I kind of want to share with you. If you guys haven't done it yourselves, go on to Chevy's website. They've got a configurator where you can build your own C8 Corvette and just have fun with it, because none of the pricing's available yet. I think it's going to be coming out end of August. But until that point, just load it up, you know, do all the features and enjoy, because it's a pretty cool configurator. Man, I'm sweating because I don't have the AC on, because I don't want the sound to be muffled out, but man, I'm sweating. So if I was to get one, I would probably get one in either the torch red or rapid blue color. I'm sticking more towards the rapid blue just because I really like how that looks. It's really bright and really cool looking. I think if you're getting a sports car, you got to get something bright and outrageous and crazy. You know, white and black is nice, but it just doesn't flash, it doesn't pop. And so if I was to get one, I'd definitely get like a red, a blue, you know, that orange, or maybe a yellow, something that's really bright. So I'd pick the rapid blue myself. I try to get the Z51 package depending on what the price is. Again, I'm not sure about that. I wouldn't customize any of the wheels. That's one of the options online, just because I could always do wheels myself. I can buy them online. I don't really need to get the OEM ones, and oftentimes aftermarket wheels look a lot better, so probably wouldn't touch the wheels. I would definitely get bright red brake calipers because I really like how that looks. They also have yellow as an option, but I would stick with red. And then I wouldn't really do any other exterior accessories aside from the red accessory engine cover, which if you don't know what the car looks like or you haven't seen, it has a glass panel. It's actually a fiberglass panel, but inside the fiberglass is a piece of glass that you can look and see the engine, similar to like any other mid-engine sports car, like the Audi R8 or any of the Ferraris. You know, the engine is located underneath this piece of glass, and you can add an accessory to make it all red. So I think that would look really cool on a blue car, have a red engine cover that makes the whole engine look red and powerful and mean. So I would definitely opt for that. I wouldn't get any stripes because I could always do that, like I said, myself. I could always go and have somebody do it, or just order it online, do it myself, and install it. So I wouldn't get that out of the factory, just because I think they would jack up the price too much. In terms of the trim, I'd probably get the 2LT. So there's a 1, 2, and 3 LT trim. I would do the 2LT just because the 1LT is a little bit bare bones. I don't think it gives you heated and ventilated seats and heated steering wheel and all the options that I'm kind of accustomed to in my car. I get the 2LT because it gives you those features. It provides like a head-up display, upgraded speakers, like a ton of different stuff. And then 3LT seems a little bit overboard because it only really provides like some suede on the inside and then a few things here and there. And I think it gives you more color options. But I think a 2LT, you can't really go wrong. I think it gives you everything you really need without having to pay the extra penny. And then for the interior, I'd probably go with the adrenaline red color. Although I do like the two-tone blue and then the natural tone. I think for the two-tone blue, you have to upgrade to the 3LT package. And I don't know if I want a blue car with a blue interior. Either I'm Smurfs or I'm Eiffel 65. So I think I'd rather stick with a red interior just to make it kind of pop and look a little bit different. But if I did go for the red exterior, I would do a blue interior because I think the blue looks cool. I've never seen blue leather, like, I don't think anywhere in a car. So that'd be pretty cool. But I'd probably stick with adrenaline red. And I'd love to do the competition seats because I think they look badass. But I'd probably, just to save on money, I'd probably stick to the GT1 or GT2 package, which the GT1 is just the base seat that comes with all the Corvettes. The GT2 has a little bit of like carbon fiber somewhere around the headrest over here. So it looks pretty nice. So if it wasn't too expensive, I'd get the GT2. But if not, I'd probably stick with GT1. I'm not too picky on that. And then I would do red seat belts because I think that looks cool with the red leather. And that would be the car I would design. So I think it'd be pretty cool looking. And honestly, it's probably going to be closer to 70, 75,000 with all those options I named off. But You know, in all seriousness, if they do come out with the Z51 package and it's, you know, $5,000 or somewhere near that, I think it's worth it, and I would definitely consider this car as a replacement to the Challenger. I mean, I love the Challenger. This is like my favorite car. I really love driving it. But when I first saw this car and I heard about all the specs, it really kind of opened my eyes to the possibilities of, you know, what could be for a car of that price range. I mean, I never knew that was possible for the price point that they're setting this car at. It really is a whole next level car. It does compete with those supercars, and it's just amazing. And so it would be cool to be kind of part of that and own a piece of this, you know, legend that I'm certain this car is going to be legendary years down the line, because what they've been able to accomplish, at least from what they're relaying to us on paper, is truly kind of an engineering and mechanical feat that they've accomplished. It's phenomenal. But enough of my oohing and aahing. I want to hear your thoughts. What do you guys think of the C8 Corvette? I'm pretty sure like 90% of people or 99% of people really like this car, but I'm sure there's some of you out there that hate it or, you know, just don't like it. You know, could you see that car being a replacement to my Dodge Challenger Scat Pack, or should I keep this car and not worry about the C8 Corvette? I want to hear your guys' thoughts, and I definitely want you to configure your own vehicle on the website and let me know what kind of configuration you would pick, because I think there's a lot of different options, and honestly, I think there's more than the website actually even shows you. I think you can do like a million different customizations of this car, and the website kind of just narrows it down to the most popular. But let me know what you think about that. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Hopefully, you know, it provided some new information for those of you that have watched every single C8 Corvette video. If not, maybe it was just a refresher, or maybe for those of you that don't know that this car was even coming out, you've got some new information now. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to find me on Instagram at Schwazy_, and I will catch you all at the next video, maybe with a C8 Corvette. Who knows? Thank you. Take care. Have a wonderful day.